Hello guys, and welcome back to another cold episode. On today's episode, Denglong has been released from his prison in the TCG, and so we're going to explore him a little bit more in Master Duel to kind of see what is possible. And the best shell for Denglong tends to be a more Swordsoul focused strategy. So obviously we already talked about, or in the previous video, we already talked about a 60 card list that more heavily focuses on the stuff that Denglong specifically can do with various different combos around that card. However, I wanted to more focus on an actual Swordsoul list that uses Denglong as a pivot point to kind of go, if you are interacted with in specific ways, to end on some different boards and potentially add additional interactions. So instead of playing a myriad of Yang Zings like we would in a regular list, as you can see here, we could play things like the level 3 and the level 2 to allow us to go into better cards. We could also play the 4 in order to synchro summon during our opponent's turn into, you know, a myriad of other things. But instead, we are just playing the 1 Chi-Wen. So yeah, Chi-Wen is pretty much the best one for us to play when it comes to the Yang Zings. It brings itself back from the grave if we utilize our counter trap, but more importantly, it is a level 1 tuner, which means that we can summon it pretty effectively off of the Denglong summon in order to go into something like Xiaofeng, which is very important. So yeah, that's basically it. Moving on, we also have the 9 pillars. Just an insane counter trap, especially right now with Tier being the best deck. Being able to shuffle something back into the deck instead of destroying it or even banishing it is just absolutely insane. So there's that. It also triggers our Denglongs, or not our Denglongs, our Yang Zings, which is very nice. Moving on, we are playing the Tenyis as well. We're playing a smaller amount of the Tenyis because we are also playing things like the Chi-Wen. But on top of that, the Tenyis just aren't as good at the moment. They're still good, but they're just not as good. So yeah, we have the double Adhara, we have the 1 Shithana, we have the double Vashana, and then we have the best one, the triple Ashana. Pretty standard for that, besides only playing the 2 Adhara. The reason we're cutting the Adhara, it's just not as good if we're also playing the Chi-Wen. We have other targets that we can go into. It's fine. Also, just the Tenyis just lose to Maxi, which is really frustrating. But Shithana is in here specifically to allow us access to to an additional 4. Now, this could also be Mapura, which is the fire one. I prefer Shithana. I feel like Shithana just does more for the deck. But yeah, there's that. It's kind of up to you. Next up for the Sword Souls, we have ourselves the triple Moye, the double Taya, the triple Ecclesia, and then the 1 long one. Again, pretty standard. Definitely need the triple Moye. I really like the triple Ecclesia, especially for going second. It means that you have access to more of your Sword Souls, which just makes it very, very good. Also, it's a tuner, which is very nice, and comes up occasionally. Next up, we got, double Taya, double long one. Obviously, we'd play 3 if we could, but there's that. And then the last of the Wyrms we have is Protoss. We're only playing 2 Protoss this time instead of 3, because Protoss, while it is very good, it's something that you don't want to see in your hand in multiples. If it's in multiples, it becomes a very dead card and becomes very difficult to actually work with. However, if you only see the 1, if you just hard draw the 1, that's fine. If you hard to draw 1, especially after banishing the other one off of like Pot of Desires, or if you search it or something like that, that's also very good. But we're also playing 2 so that we don't banish it off of Pot of Desires and stuff like that. So yeah, I feel like 2 is probably optimal in a lower card count in like 40 or 42. So there's that. Then we're playing a few hand traps. We have the triple Maxi, the double Maxi, the double Ash Blossom, and the triple Infip. I would play 3 Ash Blossom. I do think that it's very good. Maybe cut out like in Imperm. The reason for this is because of Maxi. You kind of just lose to Maxi. So playing as many outs is pretty good. As you can see, we're also playing Cross Out and Called By, so there's that. Moving on, we're also moving on to the spells. We have the double Pot of Desires, a double triple Tactics Talents. That sounds weird. The triple Emergence, the double Called By, the 1 Cross Out, the double Heavenly Dragon Circle, and then for the traps, we have the triple Infip, the 1 Blackout, and the 1 9 Pillars, as mentioned previously. Moving on to the extra deck, we're playing the 1 Denglong, It's just a very good card. We're just going to play the one, though, because it kind of doesn't work in multiples, and we kind of need the extra space in our extra deck. We have the one Yazi, we have double Baxia, we have the one Draco Berserker, we also have one Dragite. I think a lot of people have been cutting this, but I think Dragite is absolutely insane. Very good card. It only comes like it only comes up occasionally, but just like a Denglong, it is a very good corner case kind of card that just you can throw in, and you're not really going to miss any of the other cards that you would have. We have the double Chi as well. The one Chaofeng, I've mentioned this a bunch, but it's very good with the Denglong line, so we're playing the Chaofeng. We're playing 3 different level 10s, that being the Baron, the Changing, and the Qixing Longwan, all of which are very good and come up in very different ways in order to interact with your opponent. Then, of course, we have the double Monk and the one Shaman. I normally prefer 3 Monks, but I haven't had an instance where having the 3rd Monk has come up, and that's mostly due to playing less Tenyis. We're not playing that many fewer, but having 2 less means that oftentimes you don't need that 3rd Monk. So that's it for the list. Let's hop into the replays and show you how this deck performs. Alright, so here we are going second, and our hand's not the greatest, but it's pretty good. We only drew the Imperm, though, so there's that. And out comes a Hero Lives. Now, granted, I could negate this Shadow Mist to prevent them from getting into something like a Mask Change, but if they already have the Mask Change, oops. Or if they have full combo and are able to go into, like, DPE or something like that, it's just not worth it. I'm just going to keep the Infip and hope that they don't, you know, end on the Dark Angel. They grab up the Honest here, which is kind of interesting, but okay, sure. And then they set 3 and pass, and I go, oh, interesting. Let's see what we can do here. So we're going to start off with the Emergence here, to which they will respond with Mask Change. And I'm like, oh, fantastic. I understand why they're doing this. They want to rip a card out of my hand due to the Dark Laws effect. However, we do have the Imperm, so this is actually very good for us, allowing us access to the graveyard without really having to commit to anything here. So, they're going to go for the Shadow Mist. They're also going to go for the Dark Law. I'm just going to negate the Dark Law, prevent them from being able to interact there. That's fine. They also get to add up another hero monster. So, again, it's fine. They grab up the Liquid Soldier. We know the Honest. We know the Liquid Soldier. We're still going to kill him. Out comes Maxi. And now things get stressful. I have no response to this. I need to OTK here. They are on 4,000 life points, so it's not too difficult, but we still have to actually make it work. So we're going to go for the Monk here, and then we are going to activate the effect of the Ashana, to which they didn't activate either of their back row, which is kind of interesting, but out comes the Ash, and I go, okay, that makes sense. Anyway, let's see what we can do here. So, we're going to start off with the Shithana here, then we're going to normal summon the Moye, reveal the Ashana that's in our hand. We're going to go and use the Moye and the other token in order to go into Dragite. Now, notably, we do have a Moye in the grave, which allows us access to a Water Engrave, which does turn on the Dragite for the spell trap negate. And since they have 2 spells and traps, I'm feeling pretty good there. We're going to pitch the Ashana in order to go into the long one. Then we're going to simply go into the long one with Baron to floor in order to have 2 basically negates on the field. We're also going to try and burn them. They're going to activate the Called By. I'm like, that's fine. I do need to keep the Baron for something like an Imperm, and I do need to keep the Dragite for something like a for that last back row. So that's basically what we're going for here. Then we're going to go and activate the Baron in order to pop the Dragite, the Dark Law. Then we are going to use the Shaman in order to get the last card out of our hand, that being the 9 Pillars, in order to go for Monk. Now, if you don't know, Shaman has a secondary effect, which allows us to pop this monster, which, had I not done that, I would have been absolutely clowned on by Honest Neos. So it's a good thing we didn't do that. But yeah, alas, we just go to battle, and they concede, realizing that the game is over, and we had well over lethal. Good game. Alright, here we are going first. Yeah, this hand's actually really good. Drawing into the Called By, and hey, look, minigame pass. Sometimes you just got to do that. We're going to start off with the Ashana here because we do need to get a Wyrm into the graveyard for the Taya. So we're going to go for the Ashana. We're going to then banish in order to go into the Adhara. Then we're going to actually tribute off our monster in order to go for Moye. And I know what you're saying. Why did we special summon the Moye instead of normal summoning it? Well, because we're just going to go into the Denglong here, and it also gives us access to the Moye effect to draw a card, also chain blocking, which is very nice. So we're going to draw into the Emergence, and then we're going to add the 9 Pillars, and we're going to send to the graveyard a Vishada. The reason I send the Vashetta here is because I'm going to keep this Denglong on my field. It's not really going to do anything. So, and the reason we're keeping it is for the 9 pillars. So that's why we're doing that. Now we go for the tie-out here, and we're going to activate the effect in order to grab up a token. We can then activate our Adhara in order to add back the Vashetta, or the Ashana here as well. We're then going to go and link off into the Chi-Xiao. We're going to activate the Chi-Xiao. We're going to activate the Taya. Taya will then send the Chi-Wen, and then we can grab up the Longwan. Longwan will pitch the Ashana, which we grabbed, and then we can go and link off into the Chi-Xiao Longwan, or Chi-Xing Longwan, and then go for the Emergence. Now, I did do this a bit incorrectly. I should have searched off of the Grandmaster, or sorry, off of the Chi-Xiao, the Blackout, and then since I already had the Emergence, I should have used the Emergence to go into the long one to then allow us to go into the 10. So there's that bit of a mistake. It's fine on my part. We're going to add the Taya as a follow-up, and then we can just go for the Protoss here, Call Dark, set the counter trap, and pass. So I'm feeling pretty good here. We have an ability to deal with things like field spells or counter or continuous spells and traps and stuff like that with the Chi-Xing Long One. We also have access to a monster negate. We have an Omni negate, and of course my opponent is locked out of dark monsters. And we also get to banish one of their special summon monsters. They're going to start with Rhoda, revealing that they are on tier. Out comes the Paralino. I say none of that. They are going to get banished. They're then going to go for the Rhinoheart, pitch the Havness, set one, and pass, realizing that they can't do anything because of Protoss. Yay, Protoss! This is why this card is abandoned the TCG. Yeah, being able to call Dark is absolutely insane. The only reason I think that it's more or less okay in a best of one is because you can't actually know what your opponent is on. So calling something like Dark against Adamantipator really isn't going to do anything. But I still think Protoss is a ban-worthy card, and it is a bit of a problem, especially when you have a good hint as to what your opponent is playing. We're going to draw into the Pot of Desires. At this point, we're just going to call a Dark. My opponent is going to go for the SnowiKs, to the which I will burn them for an additional 12. They're going to realize that the game is over and concede. Cool. Yay, Protoss. Alright, if you know me, I always save the last replays for best replays for last. My opponent is on tier. Am I surprised? No, not in the slightest. So we are going to negate their Agito here. Then they are going to normal summon the Si Mare, to the which we will promptly negate that. To the which they will then activate the Shirin that they of course had in hand and mill a few good cards. Fantastic. They're going to grab the SnowiKs. They are then going to fuse into the Kit Kalos, to the which I have the second Imperm. So we're going to go and activate the Imperm. They're going to be promptly negated, and then they will exit into Time Thief Redoer. They're not actually going to go and activate the effect of the Redoer in order to fusion summon. Instead, they decided to keep the Redoer because they do have the SnowiKs, the Kit, and the Redoer. It's not looking too great. I draw into triple tactics, and I'm like, ooh, this could potentially be interesting. Now, we do have full combo here with the Moye and the Emergence, but I decided instead to activate the Moye, or activate the Emergence, to grab up Longwan. The reason I do this, I don't want to give them value off of the SnowiKs, and going normal summon Moye turns off like everything. So instead I go for the long one here because I could potentially go into Baron to prevent them from really doing anything here. Or I could even go for Chi-Xing if they allow that to happen. However, I wouldn't do that because of Time Thief Redoer. It's just better to not do that. But in all honesty, it's still fine. But alas, they realize the what's about to happen, and they go, I'm going to immediately negate your effect, even though it does get rid of one of my disruptions. I kind of need to do that because if you go for something like a Chi-Xing, a Sinister Sovereign, they can't really do this. So they're going to go for the Kit here and mill pretty well. It's not perfect, but they go Beast, Scream, and Merly. So they're going to be able to fusion summon here. They're going to grab Meta Noise, which is kind of interesting that they're even playing that, but alas, out comes Dragastapelia, and this is where things get interesting, because they're going to try and modulate the level of one of my monsters. Now, obviously, they can only modulate the level of my non-tuner, but it didn't really matter, because we're going into Denglong. Cool. Out comes the Denglong. Denglong lines. Let's go. So we're going to burn them for 12 and then add the 9 pillars. They are then going to activate their Redoer, which I'm like, yeah, okay. And they're going to fuse into a Kit Kalos, which they haven't already used the first effect. So they're going to activate that, send the Havness, which is the last card that they haven't fused with this turn. And then they are going to go into the Rukalos. So there you go. Out comes Rukalos. Anyway, I'm going to modulate my level to 1 by sending the Adhara. Why? Because I have the triple tactics. So I'm going to steal their monster, and then I'm going to go into Chaofeng. Chaofeng. This then allows me to go and summon out the Chi-Wen. Fantastic. I'm then going to just proceed to the battle phase and walk over the Dragastapelia. Now, if you don't know, Chaofeng has many effects. First of all, while it's synchro summoned, you cannot, your opponent cannot activate the effects of monsters with the same attribute as the Yangzing materials that were used for its synchro summon. So, they cannot activate light monster effects. Doesn't really matter, not that big of a deal. However, once per turn, when a monster your opponent controls is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can special summon a Wyrm monster from your deck in defense position with the same original attribute. Now, notably, that is a level 7 Vishada. Happy days. So now we gotta go and link off into our Shishao, allowing us to basically do our full line, basically uninterrupted. Absolutely insane. Yeah, that actually took me a really long time to figure out the perfect line for that one. Yeah, Denglong happened to just absolutely carry us there because of triple tactic, allowing us to steal that monster as well. Just so many different things kind of working in our favor there. We got very lucky as well that my opponent decided to go for the Draxapelia instead of going for something like, I don't know, a Rukolos, which, it wouldn't have been great, but it still could have been something there. Yeah, or just, holding Soliek for something. So, interesting choice, but alas, here we are. Alright, and we are back with the deck, and Denglong did do pretty well. Now, it's not perfect, but when it does come up, it does kind of clear up a lot of the issues that Swordsoul has had in the past. Or not in the past, but just like in general. It kind of allows us to pivot a little bit more, similar to what Halkafibrex did previously, but it's a little bit more limiting than just going like Halkafibrex full combo, right? Now you actually have to commit to a bit more, and so there's that. All in all, I do think that Denglong is a good inclusion in your Swordsoul decks. Even running, no Chiwen or 9 Pillars, I think it's still something that you could warrant playing just for the level modulation and stuff like that, and allowing you to send something like a Wyrm to the graveyard. But all in all, being able to also add a counter trap is very strong. Being able to special summon a monster when sent to the graveyard is also very strong. All of these things allow it to really shine. So, all in all, Denglong, pretty good. Do I think this is the best list for Denglong? Or more specifically, do I think that this is even the best list for Swordsoul? Hard to say. Honestly, 60-card Swordsoul is very good, surprisingly. I do think the 40-card version is a little bit more consistent. However, I do think that the 60-card version has higher highs, which means in a best-of-1 format, you might actually want to play the 60-card version. Kind of weird to think about, but I do think that if you want to be more consistent, if you want to have those consistencies, or just kind of like continually play a deck that you know what it's going to do, yeah, this is going to be a better list or a better shell for that. Whereas if you want more of, I'm going to win the game because I'm going to do XYZ combo, or I'm going to hard lose because I drew poorly because of 60 cards, that's absolutely, I think it's probably the way to climb a little bit more. But alas, here we are. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope that you guys did indeed enjoy it. If you did, like us very much, we'll appreciate it. And if you want to check out more content like this, as well as more Yu-Gi-Oh!, then just be sure to subscribe. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. And remember to always stay frosty. Bye-bye. Shout out to the Frost Guard, my members. Thank you guys so much for the support, and I hope you enjoy the content.